So, hi, I'm Nick, and I wanted to talk about irrigating Africa, why it's important and how it can be done effectively and sustainably. So, we've got a problem feeding the world, and not just amounts of food, but good food. And we're told that 7 billion of us, going to be 9 billion pretty soon. Lots of people going to bed hungry already. What are they all going to eat? Well, I think the answer must be, and other people agree, is we've got to grow more food in the first place and grow good food. And we can do that in Africa. Africa is massive, it's really big, and there is a lot of water that falls on Africa. A lot of people don't know this, but there's enough rain falls on Africa in a year to meet the water needs of 9 billion people. Enough water lands on Ethiopia in a year to meet the needs of 500 million people. So there is water, although it's not, evenly distributed, but it is there. And there are a lot of people. There are 1 billion Africans now, and they're going to be 2 billion pretty soon. They're all really young. A lot of them don't have a lot to do, but many of them are already farmers. So the question is, there is the demand, if you like, food, and there is a potential source of supply. So what's the problem? And of course there are a number of problems. The big ones are essentially that there are technologies, irrigation and water management technologies that have been developed, and they are water conservative. They're not like flood irrigation things where we're using profligate amounts of water. They work, and they've been proven to work in lots and lots of places. The challenge is that the people who need them don't know about them. And even if they've heard of them, they don't still appreciate or really understand the value that those technologies or solutions offer them. And even if they do that, well, they can't get them. They're not easily and conveniently and affordably accessible. So those are the problems that can actually quite easily be resolved, as long as we understand that the people that we're talking about, which is essentially smallholder, 1-acre farmers in sub-Saharan Africa in this case, if we understand what their agenda is or are, because they're not thinking about climate change or global food security or carbon emissions or whatever, or how much GDP per capita their sector generates in their national economies. They are concerned, justifiably, about their families and how they're going to feed them tomorrow, and how they're going to send their kids to school, and how they're going to get health care as and when they need it. So why is irrigation so important for smallholder farmers, and why is it so important that we resolve these issues? There are some facts which are not mysterious. They stare us in the face. African agriculture is still 95% or thereabouts rain-fed. That means that in certain parts of the continent, which only have one rainy season a year, they have to grow everything that they're going to eat or sell in a 4 or 5 month period. So for the other 7 or 8 months, they're doing nothing, just waiting and hoping for next year. There are other parts of the country or the continent rather, where there are 2 rainy seasons, so it's a little bit easier for them, but it still leads to a kind of feast-famine production cycle, which means everybody and his brother is producing food at the same time. So when they try to take it to market, the prices fall through the floor, and they don't get very much in return for all that sweat and labor and emotion that they've invested in that effort. And so they don't have very much left over or very much money to invest in the next crop cycle, right? So that's the feast part, if you want. The famine part comes in when, in the dry seasons in between the 2 harvests, when there's not much food available in the market, and they have to use the very little money they have to pay the very, very high prices that the market now demands for that food. So they're caught in that poverty cycle. And getting through that is surely, to my mind at any rate, just a question of aligning production more closely with demand. I think Toyota used to call it, or do call it, sort of just-in-time production. So if you capture water from the rain or abstract it, pump it up from groundwater sources, renewable groundwater sources, rivers, streams, ponds, or digging hand-dug wells, you can grow more food more often. You can grow food all year round. You can deliberately choose, because the risks are taken away from the kind of the risks that you face with rain-fed agriculture. You can grow more nutritious food, either because it's got a higher market value, bring you more money, which you need, or because it's got higher nutritive value. They're kind of the same thing. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, and reiterate or emphasize the absolute fundamental importance that if we are serious about resolving these problems of food security and better nutrition and income generation and rural development, then it has to be about managing the water. So irrigate Africa is my message.